Oh, hi, it's Eric Edmund. I feel I have to say something about what has gone on with Mr. Bannerman defecting to the Tories, or shall we say, he never really left, and Miss Andreasen, who has ditched the UKIP group and now sits as an independent in the European Parliament. I find this desperately sad, and the reason is it was all perfectly predictable what has happened. All I can say is the quote from Guido Fawkes, which says here, "I have never in my entire political career had a philosophical conviction that I was not prepared to abandon in order to secure my place at the publicly funded Golden Trough." And God bless the EU and all who work tirelessly to preserve it. Well, I'm afraid that just about sums it up. It's strange how things come back. The very first meeting I went to of the NEC when I was elected, I raised the issue that would we not be better to not send MEPs to Brussels, but simply to keep them in the UK, let them donate a large part of the EU money to the party, because when they go to Brussels, they just go native. The EU is very good at flattering the egos of less intelligent people, shall we say, than the EUcrats. The EU civil service are very bright, they're very able, and they've been doing this for donkey's years, and they just know how to manipulate people like Bannerman, like Dartmouth, and like Nigel Farage. Flattery and the trappings of power, but of course there's no real power there, go to their heads. And I found it so depressing that at that first meeting of NEC, I was shouted down by one Douglas Denny, who said, "Oh, we've already decided this, you know, we send our people there." It all fits in to one of Nigel Farage's favourite phrases. He wants to professionalise the party. Well, you have to be careful about that, because you have to be careful to know to whom your professionals owe allegiance. And in Nigel's case, it was sufficient that he felt they owed allegiance to him, rather than to the party and to the cause. And that is where he has come very, very, very badly unstuck. I do feel very upset about this, because when I was kicked off at NEC, it was Bannerman who compiled a dossier against me, which actually made Alistair Campbell's dodgy dossier look like a model of transparency and honesty. He also, of course, was involved in kicking off David Abbott, who was also an elected member. And most dreadful of all, Nuttall wrote to Del Young, who was then on the NEC, dismissing him from the UKIP party because he had been a member of something called UK First. Now, that was a complete lie. Del Young has never been a member of UK First. But it didn't matter, because what Nigel said went, and Nigel supported Nuttall, and no one was ever given a chance to put their case or to examine the evidence against them. And all these things now are catching up with UKIP. And quite frankly, it is great sadness to me, but it does seem to be falling to bits. Mr. Denny, of course, was the attack dog used by Farage and the cabal to attack me and David Abbott and Del Young, and it was rather hurtful. But now I have come to my possession a copy of an email which Mr. Denny, or an alleged copy of an email which Mr. Denny has sent to David Bannerman. And it reads, to learn of you, dear David, to learn of your defection to the Conservative Party after years of your denouncing them is the most cynical, self-serving act of betrayal I know of in all the years of politics that I have been engaged in. This is strong stuff. I am appalled and disgusted with you, a person who I thought had integrity, but I was now proven without a shadow of doubt how shallow in principles you really are. What is worse is for me to personally learn of this event, as I considered you a friend, someone invited to stay under my roof and eat at my table. Oh dear. I'm afraid this is all too typical of Mr. Denny. It's a very hysterical email to write, but it was typical of his response when Mottram turned up at the NEC. He just became quite hysterical. I feel sorry for him because, in fact, he genuinely believes in getting out of the EU. But the problem is, of course, that a lot of the UKIP MEPs do not, because they make so much money out of it. And principal amongst these is Nigel Farage. I therefore can see very little future for UKIP. It's desperately sad when I look back and I think of all the good people who have been kicked out, aided, the cases against them formulated by people like Bannerman and Denny. A very, very depressing picture, and I honestly do not know where it's all